Dr. Vivek, I really want to thank you for all the adaptations you've done. So for allowing us to have this few minutes with you.
It's a pleasure.
Okay. So let me start by just asking you a few preliminary questions.
Sure.
Where were you born, and what was your growing up like?
So I was born in a very small city in Uttar Pradesh, UP, a city named Fatehpur. You probably have not heard the name of this city. You have heard the name of Fatehpur Sikri, which is near Agra. This is not that one. I am talking about a very small city hidden between Kanpur and Allahabad. That's where I was born, and then I did my schooling there itself, and very average schools, I would say. I went to Government Intermediate College Fatehpur, where we used to sit on the ground for up to 6th grade or whatever, and then after that you get a chair and a seat, and that was a big deal. And then did my intermediate there, and the families there are generally very rural, farming families. My father had farming as well as some rice mills and so on. So I grew up in that environment.
You know, from going from there to here is a magical trip. I would like to ask you questions about that. Okay, to begin with, you know, was it inside your family? Was it your father and mother saying you have to study, or was it something inside you?
So let me, I think, answer it in a little broader way. Very good question. I think education was focused from my mother's side. On my father's side, education was, people were in sort of farming and business. So education was important, but was not the end of the world. But for my mother, it was the end of the world. So I studied hard. And for your students, I want to tell something that's very interesting. That is that when I gave my IIT entrance exam, that was the first time I saw a paper in English. I couldn't understand half of it, and so what can a person who comes from that background do? So obviously I didn't make it into IIT. I made it to IIT Kharagpur, some mining or something I got. God knows how I made it, but that's a miracle in itself. But I didn't go there. Then I gave NIT test, National Institute of Technology, Allahabad, where I am in the board now, and that's where I did my engineering and mechanical engineering, and I was a topper there. I got gold medal and immediately got a scholarship to go to. I actually got admission in both US and Canada. My visa was denied in US, so I went to Canada and did my PhD at Queen's University in Kingston, Ontario. So there I did PhD. After that I had started my job career at HP in Silicon Valley, then with Fujitsu, because you were talking about your book earlier. In 1991, Japan could not do anything wrong and US could not do anything right, if you remember that time. So I said, well, let me see it, and I joined Fujitsu in US and got to work with Fujitsu in Kawasaki with them. So that 5 years I did at Fujitsu, and then I did a startup of my own, consulting startup. And 2000 end, my mother lost both of her kidneys, and literally in a day I had to make a decision to come back to India. Both kids, both of my kids were born in US and so on, and I want to come back to this point. How can in one day a person making such a difficult decision? But I moved back to Bangalore. I was never in Bangalore before. I didn't know what Bangalore was like except on map, and we came down here. We figured all that out, and in last 11 years I have built a company called Ishoni Networks, which was acquired by Philips. Then I moved to Portal Software, which was acquired by Oracle, and then I built R&D center for Dell, which is very healthy now. And then about a year back I joined to Cisco. Now the other aspects I will also talk, and then I'll answer your question. This whole journey, I had very little guidance, and the resources available to people who were growing at my age and the resource available to people who are growing today, there is a 1,000,000x difference. So there was no real person to mentor me or advise me and so on. So literally through our own, school of hard knocks, I have grown, and very proud of it. And speaking at whether it's Stanford or Berkeley or many other very celebrated schools in US and in India, it makes me very proud to say that I come from Fatehpur, where I went to government intermediate college and studied in these situations. So now that journey that I have covered, to answer your question, mother was the person who motivated for education, and after that it was pretty much my own drive of what I wanted to achieve. First, it was very technical in nature, so I wanted to be the best in what is called electronic schooling technology. As the computers become hotter and hotter, it was becoming very difficult to cool them, and I became the world expert in that. Actually, I used to teach courses on that and all that. So the whole drive was to become the best in whatever I did, and I did become best. I have several patents in that area and so on. And then after I achieved that place, I gave up and moved into general management. So marketing, sales, general management, and then worked in all the companies that I talked to you before about. So very round career I have, both in my professional life as well as whether you call it academic life or any of that sort.
There is a whole ocean full of people in India that would marvel at what you have done, but quickly say, well, he's a genius, that's why.
No, I am very ordinary person. I don't have above average intellect. If you measure my IQ, I've never done it, but it will probably be as close to any of your students as it gets. I'll be among one of them. So what makes a person like me successful, or at least what has worked for me? I think number one is to have a vision of what you want to achieve. So know where you are heading. I keep telling people, any road is good enough if you don't know where you are going. So knowing what you want, and it can keep changing in different stages in life, is fine. But knowing where you want to go is probably the number one thing I'll say. So have a very clear vision of what you want, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, whatever your time frame is, one. And then two, have a strategy to achieve that goal. And in that strategy will be some people who will help you get there, whether as a mentor or a coach or something. That's part of the sort of little bit of strategy. So your strategy should be based on the type of people available to you to mentor you. And once you have the strategy and the people who can help you, number three is plan. Have a very detailed plan with milestones of what you want to achieve. Continue to follow your plan and persevere. Up to 3 is fairly easy. 4th is where you have to persevere day in and day out, and you will have many failures. Actually, if I start listing you my failures, the list will be longer than my successes. But failure is a step, one step before success kind of thing, right? So have perseverance to go through it and correct your course as needed, and then continue this vicious cycle. You achieve that goal or achieve that vision, and at 5 years, 10 years, you may want to achieve something else at that point. Just go and repeat this whole thing again. Work very hard. The key to success is under your alarm clock. That is absolutely true. Work very hard and have a very strong values which will be the framework for your life.
Tell me about those values. What do you mean?
So, values you can talk about a lot, and I'll just give a simple answer. The 2-3 values that define Vivek Mansingh, what are they? Which will not be compromised whether I fail or succeed. So, for example, integrity. I will not take a shortcut to success, even if I achieve my life's goal. I'll let that goal go if I have to choose between compromising the integrity to achieve that. So some values, telling the truth or hard work, or all of the leadership type qualities which decide the framework. And if I have to name one, I will say really integrity. So have that very clear. And your success definition, success should, in my opinion, be defined as multidimensional success, not one dimension success that I want to make this much money, or I want to be CEO, or whatever that is. That's one professional success, very important, but it cannot be just that. It should have, in my opinion, it should have spiritual success, it should have physical success. You don't want to die of heart attack when you achieved your goal, so physically you have to pay attention. You should have relationship success, where relationship with your family or parents or children or spouse or neighbors or teacher, all relationships could be part of that. You should have giving back success. What do you want to leave for the world or country when you pass? So multi-dimensional success, not just your professional success in terms of money. One should have that framework, and I call it that if you define these things, and only you should define that, not your peer group, not your teachers. They can guide you, but it should be your values. And what I see sometimes on the board, I show that if you have these values, you plot across the board, and if you achieve these, it becomes a wheel, and that wheel can turn in any situation. If you have very single dimensional success, it's very hard for life to turn, and generally towards the end you will say that, okay, I wasn't thrilled with my life. So definition of success in all of these aspects by you, and then having a strategy for achieving all of that, is the road for success, in my opinion. And then all the other things I talked about, have a strategy, then have a plan, then have a way to sort of manage your progress and persevere through that. And then if you do all of that and you achieve balanced success in your life, you will be very, very happy towards the end of your life.
You know, if you look at many people today, the ambition exists, but then there is a PSU bank that might say, here's 6 lakhs a year, and you look at the job description and say, this doesn't sound too bad. I can relax, have a lot of fun. Why should I go do all this? Or the second thing could be, my father and mother are doing okay. You know, our real estate prices have gone up. You know, they're earning now 3 lakhs. That's a lot of money compared to what we had. You know, I can get a good job and stay with them. And I like them anyway.
Right.
What is wrong with that thinking? Or is there anything wrong with that thinking?
My belief is, and there is no right or wrong answer, that true success also comes from realizing your full potential. And realizing your full potential can only be tested when you have high goals for yourself in all the categories that I talked to you about, and work hard in a fair way to achieve those. Only then you will realize how high you can jump. If you take easy path, what legacy would you have left, and how would you have realized your full potential? Nothing wrong in taking a good job and staying with your parents or achieving your professional goal, but make sure you test yourself and realize your full potential, and I think everyone would find that very rewarding. So ultimately you will fail at some point, and that will decide your potential. So ultimate success lies in the last failure that you will have, not in all the successes that you have achieved.